Good evening, sports fans, and welcome back to another episode of The Beautiful Game. We kick off tonight's show with the hottest topic in sports right now, agenda setting in sport. I'd like to start off by explaining what agenda setting is. And a study I've found from McCombs in Venezuela explains that agenda setting involves the new media identifying key issues within sport that pleases the public eye. Setting an agenda is not about convincing people on what they want to know. It's about accidentally influencing our thoughts by choosing specific topics. And today's topic I'd like to focus on is gender and the role of gender in the world of sports and how it is portrayed in the media. The media, deliberately or inadvertently, serves as a gatekeeper, selecting which narratives give more weight. This means, as you know at the minute, the Darts World Championship, the young man Luke Littler is 16 years old, and we all know how much of a good job he's doing, smashing people at the darts, and it's at the forefront of all media sources at the minute. However, I'd like to focus on women's sport and the difference between us men and the women, and why is it not portrayed in the media equally or even just as much? Is the women's portrayed more negatively, or less? That is what I'm basically going to be focusing on today. I'd like to start off with a study I found, Mesner from 2013, and he explained that the sports industry, particularly media sports, presents boys and men with an idealised version of what is to be a man. Since a true man is rugged, powerful and aggressive, this would hopefully push forward, they'd think, to the men's sports, therefore being more competitive. Therefore, if men's sport is pushed more, then it's clearly going to gain a more positive viewpoint. This is backed up by some of my own research that I've been getting up to recently to make sure this is the best podcast for you. And I found in 2020, The Guardian posted about the best 100 women's footballers and the best men's 100 footballers in the world, let's say. And the women's post only got 7 retweets and 15 likes compared to the men's, which got 22 retweets and 135 likes. Therefore, it is more popular. Why is this, you ask? Why is it better? Was it better? You'd think from a left-wing liberal viewpoint, media outlet like The Guardian itself, it'd be pushed equally. But the question is, we're hopefully going to answer today, is why is the men's getting more attention than the women's? The reason for this is the calibre of coverage men's sports get. Male sports events, for instance, are typically featured on page 1 or the back of newspapers or at the front of most apps, say Sky Sports, or even your standard apps that you OneFootball, your FOTMob, etc. are all the main stories, are all men's sports. Therefore, if you've got to take into account the terminology employed about the characteristics of men's to females, and as you can see in a post here, these are all positive posts enhancing the sports that men perform. But if you flip it and you see some of the news articles that female athletes have had put out on them, the terminology being used have been pregnant, married, compete, participate and strive. These are all, yes, they're adjectives, but again, all associated with women. When you go compare it to the men that are deemed fast and strong, you can understand why men get they are deemed more better almost in a sense, and are put forward more positively compared to the women. And this is possibly a reason why men get more coverage. Yeah, not just coverage, but as a whole, as a society, men's sport is deemed better. But that is not the case. Here you have, though, another example of agenda setting by Sky Sports. I'm going to discuss 2 tweets, one about sporting events that men do and 2 women's. So the first tweet was the Women's Super League. that was posted way before the restart of the Premier League, but however, the Women's Super League post only gained 7 retweets and 183 likes. However, the Premier League restart tweet gained 26 retweets and 399 likes. Does this imply that the men's game is more significant than the women's, or is it really because the media corporations such as Sky Sports promote the men's games more? Why is Sky doing this, you ask? Well, their goal is to satisfy their audience, and from research I've found that Sky's audience consists 72.98% men and the rest women. Therefore, you can understand why Sky Sports push men's sports more, because that is their audience. That is what their audience would like to see. The comparison between male and female sports coverage, tweets and posts further support this. So you understand why Sky would push that so much, because ultimately that is their audience and they are going to profit maximise. Yes, it's not fair on women, but as stated before, Sky Sports are a business and they're going to try and make as much money as possible. Well, it's time to sum up this podcast and what we've been talking about today. And to sum up our talk about gender setting in sports, with regard to gender issues, it is important to remember that media is a major factor in forming public perceptions and determining the priorities in the sports world. Through recognising and analysing these stories, we're enabled to question and reframe this agenda. It's imperative that we fight for the more representation, equal coverage, and equal opportunities in sport. We're here at the summary, the end of the podcast. So I'd just like to sum up everything we've been talking about agenda setting in sport. It's important to remember that media has a major factor in forming the public perceptions and determining the priorities of the sports world. Through recognising and analysing these stories, we ourselves are able to question and reframe this agenda. It's imperative that we fight for the representation of women's sports and equal coverage and equal opportunities in sport, because you never know what the future holds. I have been your host with the most, Tom Benoak, and thank you for tuning in again for another episode of The Beautiful Game. I'll see you next week with the hottest topics in the sports world right now.